Welcome to Book Talks with Two Sisters Writing and Publishing, where you get to meet our amazing authors who share their insights, inspiration, and instruction for you to hopefully open a new chapter in your life and live bigger, better, and bolder. With me today is a woman who defies description. She's a boss. She is highly accomplished. She is an amazing person who is humble and regal at the same time. She is a retired judge who served as the longest-serving chief judge of Detroit's huge, bustling 36th District Court. And she's also my mother, Judge Marylin Atkins, author of The Triumph of Rosemary, a memoir. I want to welcome you, Cap, here. I call her Cap, that's her nickname. Welcome to Book Talks.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Super excited to talk with you here about your book, your story, and how you're such a tremendous inspiration to people and especially women because you've overcome so many odds to achieve what you've achieved. So can you first talk a little bit about your background, about you were put in foster care, you grew up with a difficult situation, and you persevered and you were determined to survive. So can you share your background with us?
Well, I faced challenges from the beginning of my life, being born a biracial child of an Italian mother and an African-American father. And the Italian side of the family said I could not join the family because I'm biracial, so I was placed in foster care. I was adopted by an African-American couple in Saginaw, and it was a double-edged sword because my adoptive mother was physically and emotionally abusive. My adoptive father was a wonderful, sweet, kind man, but she was pretty much a tyrant. I had to be perfect. I had to make the honor roll every semester, and if I didn't, I got a beating. I had to play the piano. I played the organ. Did I learn things from her? Of course I did. I play the piano to this day. I became a church organist for several churches in Saginaw. It was really a fire and brimstone kind of upbringing at her hand. I had an adoptive brother who was 4 years older than me, and at the age of, I was 12 and he was 16, and he left, and he never came back. And at that age, I said, I'm going to have to go along to get along with this woman, and one of these days I will be out from under her and I will not be tortured like this anymore. And that happened age 19 when I married your father.
And that brought with it its own set of drama because Daddy was a Roman Catholic priest who wanted a family, left the church in the mid-1960s. It was extremely scandalous. And then he marries a woman who's 25 years younger than him and Black. This was in 1966. Can you tell us about that era and what the bishop said to you?
Well, when the bishop found out that I was having a relationship with your father, and by the way, the relationship did not start until he actually left the rectory. He was a Roman Catholic priest for 15 years at the urging of his parents. And he said, I've given 15 years. I want my own family. I'm 44 years old. If I don't leave now, it's going to be too late. And so he left. And I was the organist at the church where he was the assistant pastor, and I set out to try to convince him not to leave. And of course I didn't convince him not to leave. But after he did leave the rectory, moved into the YMCA, and the bishop found out about our relationship, called me into his office, said, I'm going to hell, it's a mortal sin, we have to leave Saginaw, we have to leave the state of Michigan. And I just listened to him, and I got up and kissed his ring, and like a good Catholic girl, and I left. And not very long after that, your father and I went to Toledo, and we got married.
Mhm. And then, not long after that, I came along. So in your book, you talk about all of these issues, and it's just written in a beautiful way that people love. They write 5-star reviews on Amazon saying you write in a very conversational style. People say it feels like you're just talking to them. So the question people always ask about mixed race children is, what about the children? So what's your answer to that?
Well, your father and I realized, and we wanted to impress upon you and your sister Catherine, that everybody on earth is not going to be happy that you're taking up space because you're mulatto and, I don't know, octoroon and all
All those words come from the slave era. We're multiracial. Yeah.
still used in the 60s.
Right, right.
And so we wanted to instill in you a pride that you come from both of us, and you have to be your own. You have to be your own people. And the two of you, we were very proud the way you grew up, and you made your own way. We could not protect you from all the slings and arrows that we knew that you were going to face. I mean, your father's 100% Caucasian. I'm half Caucasian. And so it gets whittled down, but the two of you still understood and appreciated and loved the fact that you came from the two of us. You have been mistaken for white. Catherine certainly has been mistaken for white. When you were little, I was asked whose children I'm taking care of. All of that in the 60s was happening. And there were some places in this United States, as people are aware, where interracial marriage was outlawed. And in Loving versus Virginia came along in 1967, the year that you were born, and said it was unconstitutional for any state to deprive a person from deciding who they wanted to marry.
Mm-hmm.
And there was no good reason to prohibit it.
Mm-hmm.
And that was 1967, and it was a slow acceptance. Since we were up north and we were in Saginaw, we just got the stares and the whispers. But our stares and whispers came also from the fact that he was an ex-priest, mm-hmm. that he was 25 years older than me, mm-hmm. and then that it's an interracial marriage.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So what's your advice to parents of mixed-race children today? Even though when we were growing up, there were no examples of other people who were mixed. There was no Barack Obama, Tiger Woods, Mariah Carey. The list goes on. There was no one for us to look up to and say, wow, they're mixed and I can be that way too. I can be successful. What's your advice to parents of mixed-race children today? Because there's still challenges. You're either not black enough to be white, not white enough to be black, and people want you to pick sides, and it's very difficult to figure out who am I in this world.
Correct. You have to instill a strength in biracial children to stand up for themselves and to be proud of whatever races that they are a part of. They have to ignore the people who are going to belittle them or talk about them because they are biracial.
You can fix your light. It's fine. I can just talk for a minute while you're adjusting your light.
The bulb burned out. I got to go get a bulb.
That's fine. That's totally fine. So everybody, I just want to share a few things that my mother said. I was born in the summer of 67. At the time, there were race riots in Watts and Newark and Detroit. I was born a month after the Loving versus Virginia U.S. Supreme Court ruling that struck down laws in 16 states that were still making it illegal for people of different races to marry. So look at all that symbolism. I was born during a summer when there were race riots. I was born a month after the U.S. Supreme Court decision legalized interracial marriage. And at the same time, in San Francisco, the hippie culture was having a love-in. It was called the Summer of Love. So all these things are swirling around me. And at the same time, my father baptized me in the hospital room when I was 1 day old. And he said, God, please make Elizabeth a princess of peace. And so he was anointing me as a symbol of the unity that my parents represent. And I have since created a sort of ministry, a life mission with my writing and speaking to bring people together across the color lines and the lines of culture, religion, ethnicity, national boundaries. It doesn't matter. We're all one, we're all human, and we're all entitled to the same peace, love, equality, and justice that every human being on this planet desires and deserves. And that's why with our virtual speakers agency at Two Sisters Writing and Publishing, our authors, who would include my mother, speak about diversity, inclusion, equality, justice, and how to create change that can be sustained now and into the future. So now that we have fixed our lighting challenge, my mother is back, and I would love for you to please talk about the extraordinary example that you and my father set about teamwork to achieve family goals. If you want to start with the story where we're little and you look down and say, oh my gosh, you did some math.
In 1971, I was sitting in the living room, and the two of you and Catherine are playing on the floor. Your father's reading the Sunday paper. And I looked at him, he's almost 50 at this point, and I look at you two darling children, and I started all of a sudden adding up the years, and I determined that by the time it was time for your dad to retire, it would be time for you and Catherine to go to college. I had a year of college under my belt, and that was all. I got married, had you and Catherine in quick succession. So I said to your father, you know, I got to get back to school. And he looked at me, he said, well, that's always been the plan, but you sound like it's an emergency. I said, it is an emergency. And I told him what I was thinking. And he said, I don't have to retire at 65. And I said, I want you to have that choice if you want. And I said, I gotta get back to school. I gotta do it right now. Saginaw Valley College was 8 years old when I enrolled in 1971. I picked a degree in a course of study in psychology with a minor in sociology, and I finished in 1973. We juggled babysitters, we had kinder care, we did everything that we could so that I could go to school. He got me a car so that I could go to school, and my focus was to get in and get out and get that degree and get on with it. Mm-hmm. After I got my degree in 1973, I did get a job with the state of Michigan as a claims examiner in the unemployment insurance office. And I knew that this was not going to be enough, even in 15 years, to pay for college. So I had to think of something else, a career that was going to, where my salary was going to exponentially increase as time went on. And Tom and I settled on law school. And we moved to Oak Park, and I enrolled in University of Detroit in 1976, and I finished that in 1979, passed the bar in 1980, and I immediately began to get job offers. I was still with the state of Michigan, still with MESC, Michigan Employment Security Commission, but I was able to, I studied while I worked while I went to law school. And it was difficult on my family, and I knew that, but I knew sacrifices had to be made in order for the goal to be met. Mm-hmm. Your father, we were going to work in the same car. When I started law school, I went to University of Detroit campus downtown, and he came home to take care of the two of you after school. Mm-hmm. Fixed dinners, he was Mr. Mom. Mm-hmm. And I couldn't have done it. And the team, the saying that the teamwork makes the dream work is
Right.
absolutely correct.
Yeah.
That's exactly what we did. This was a family-oriented goal. This was for all of us. And you children were wonderful in understanding that I wasn't home a lot of the time because I was either in class, not home at night because I went to night school, and your father took care of you. And it worked. And I kept getting wonderful. I got gubernatorial appointments, worked for the attorney general, passed the bar, and it was great. It worked.
You two set the most extraordinary example of teamwork. And when I grew up and realized, oh my gosh, how did she work full time, go to law school at night, study on the weekends, 2 kids, a husband, a house? Oh my goodness. But you did it, and you did it with such grace and poise. And I think that women everywhere can be inspired by your example of what you did, and showing that struggle and sacrifice do pay off for the long term. But there's a message when you speak to audiences, especially to women. I always hear you say, pick the right partner, because your partner can make or break you when you have these kinds of big dreams that require the team. Can you give some words of inspiration to young women about that, about how to pick the right partner to secure the best possible future?
Well, I think first of all, you have to pick somebody who has some dreams and some goals like you. They don't have to be lofty, but I mean, you got to be on your way to somewhere, and you have to have the support. You have to support each other. Now, the thing about your father and I was, it was like a racehorse and a plow horse. And I was the racehorse. But it was my time to be the racehorse because our goal was for me to get to a job where I would be able to support 2 children in college at the same time, since the 2 of you are a year apart. If let's say you're a couple and both of you are about the same age, and you're both, I mean, that's what usually happens. You meet in college and you get your degree, and if that's what you want to do, you both go on and get a master's. Maybe somebody gets a PhD. But you have to get a partner that's like-minded and is going to support you and not be insecure about what you want to do. I had a boyfriend I wanted to be a doctor when I was a kid. And he was very insecure about the fact that I wanted to be a physician. And so, he wasn't going to be the right partner anyway, but you have to pick somebody who's like-minded, who also has goals and ambitions. And there was a time when maybe the wife would work and put the husband through school, and then when the husband got out, he would put the wife through school. It has to be a team effort. You got to pick somebody who's not insecure and who's going to support your dreams. And then you both sit down and figure it out together, what it is you want, and you go for it.
Now, while you were going for it, it wasn't easy. You studied on the weekends. Daddy took us camping up north to visit relatives so that you would have that time to study, and you were probably just exhausted for 3 years. But what did you tell yourself in the midst of that? Like, what mind games did you have, or what mantras did you use to get through it?
The eye on the prize was to get a job where I could pay for, without his assistance, if I had to, pay for 2 college educations. You and Catherine and Tom were always the goal. I wanted him to retire if he wanted to. And it was imperative that I make enough money to put you through college. So that's what I kept telling myself. There were times during law school, it was so difficult, especially working, that I wanted to give up. There were times that I took an exam and I thought, oh, you know what, I really probably bombed it. But I didn't. And I got through law school decently. And as you know, I did get a job as I was chairperson of the Workers' Compensation Appeal Board, thanks to, at that time, Governor James Blanchard. And that was the money that I used to put both of you through University of Michigan. You went, and then Catherine joined you, and then for 3 years, 2 of you were there, and then she was there alone, and I did the whole thing. I did rent, I did everything, and your father took care of the car and the insurance.
Thank you.
And whoa.
We're putting it to good use. Thank you.
Yeah. But to go to 1 year after another to your graduation and then Catherine's graduation from the University of Michigan, we couldn't have been prouder. And fortunately, when Catherine was finishing up, your dad was getting sick. And he did live to see me be an attorney, but he didn't live to see me be a judge. But he lived to see both of you graduate from the University of Michigan.
Yes. It's hard to believe that on Sunday, in 2 days, he will have been gone 30 years. That's just mind-blowing. And you laid the foundation for our excellent undergraduate educations. Catherine went on to get a master's in writing from University of San Francisco, and I went to Columbia University and got a master's in journalism. And when I was there, that's when Daddy died. But we absolutely carry on his legacy, because while you were studying and going to law school, he was taking care of us at night, dinner time, piano lessons, ski lessons, swim lessons, overseeing homework. And when he put us to bed, he would go journal at the kitchen table, dining room table. And so we watched you work hard and sacrifice, and we watched him contribute in the teamwork and also write, record daily life, the mundane details like meatloaf for dinner, the magnificent details of, life in a family that he had dreamed about for so long that he finally had. So Daddy instilled in us the passion for writing. Catherine and I both had journals, and that's how we became English majors and started a company. We are about to publish our 26th book in 4.5 years, which includes your book.
Congratulations. I'm so proud.
Thank you. So you talked about the Workers' Compensation Appeal Board, that you were appointed by Governor James Blanchard. And in that position, you shattered both the glass and black ceiling, because you were the first woman and the first person of color to hold that very esteemed and important position in Michigan that you helped. They had a horrific caseload, and you diminished it greatly in your tenure. So can you talk about the ability of women to persevere, especially in realms where they might be the first, and what it takes to do that?
Well, when you're the first of all, you're very proud of being the first. And what you see it as initially is, I'm opening a door. And I like to think that having been the first African American and woman to lead that appeal board in its history, I think it had been around like 75 years, I'm not sure. I'm thinking that I'm opening a door for African American women to go where they haven't been welcomed or wanted before. My appointment as the chairperson was, I believe it wasn't 100% received by everyone, especially the business community, because first of all, you got a woman in charge, and second of all, she's an African American woman, and what's going to happen now to the appeal board? But what you do is you do the very best job you can, and they began to see that I was able to get that backlog, 10,000 cases, a backlog. I was able to whittle it down through my leadership The appeal board members wrote the decisions, and I was able to whittle that down to, by the time Governor Engler came in and Governor Blanchard was out and the appeal board was going to be abolished, I went from 10,000 cases to 1,800. And
Remarkable.
when the union side and the business side saw these cases being reduced, oh, Atkins is okay, she's doing the job. They just want the job done. They may greet you at the door with lots of misgivings, but you just shine. You just show them what you do, and never, ever, ever say, I can't do this. Mm-hmm. So that's my line to other African American women. And listen, that was 1985. Since then, we've had a lot of Black firsts. We read about them all the time. Young, middle-aged, older African American women, and now we've got Kamala Harris running as the first African American female vice president of the United States. Mm-hmm. So that's what we want to do. You want to shine, mm-hmm. and always, always, always have faith and security in yourself and your mm-hmm. ability.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So for women of every race, I hear whenever I mention your name or other people bring it up, the word integrity is always attached to your name. And that's something that you build and protect. So what are your words of wisdom to women and men as they pursue their career goals, to pursue them with a spirit of integrity, with a personal code of conduct that ensures their personal and professional success?
What you want to do is always have people have confidence in you and be able to trust that you are going to do the right thing, that you're not going to be able to be bought or persuaded to do something that you know and they know is not the right path to take. You have to keep your integrity intact, because that is your card to the world saying, I am a good person, I am an honorable person, and I am going to do the right thing. You want to be able to have people trust you, and they do that. And listen, once you lose your integrity, it's very, very difficult to get it back. So you got to keep it. You know, when I was a judge and I was talking to young people in schools, and I would tell them, you do not want to get any cases. You don't want to get a record, because that record can stay with you for the rest of your life, and it can block you from getting money for college, getting in college, getting, decent. And when I say to the young men and the young women, but especially the young men, no young lady who's trying to make something of herself wants a man with a record. So don't get one in the first place, because it follows you around like a shadow for the rest of your life. And as we see women and men coming out of prison, how difficult it is to get employment, because as soon as the prospective employer sees they have a record, they don't want to hire them. So much so that the laws have been changed now to reduce the impact of someone having a record, so that they can get employment so they won't reoffend. Mm-hmm. So don't get a record in the first place. And the way you do that is you do the right thing and keep your integrity intact. Mm-hmm.
And one of the ways you can do that, and I heard you during a beautiful commencement address that you did, talking to students about listening to their inner voice, which always tells you right and wrong. Is your intuition something that guided you through your career and life?
I always had good intuition. I was always able to read people on the spot. And I think that's why I have a long career of supervision. You have to know when to hold and when to fold, when to fight and when to flight. You just have to know that. And I was blessed with an ability to be able to size up a situation, size up a person, and figure out right away whether or not I should be close to this person or keep my distance. And also be able to get through the political minefield sometimes that you have to go through in order to get what you want. And I'm not necessarily talking about politics in terms of running for office. There are politics in everything. We see it in everything. There's a faction over here that wants this, and a faction over here that wants this. And maybe you're in the middle, and maybe you're the decision maker. You have to make sure that you understand both sides to come to an agreement in the middle to see what's going to work. And that always worked for me. And I think that's why all through my career, I made a good leader and a good supervisor.
Yes, absolutely. So can you tell us why you decided to write a book?
Well, you and Catherine encouraged me to write my book. I'm thinking, even though, my story is different because I married a former Roman Catholic priest and he's 25 years my senior, and I'm Black and he's white. Even though I had that, I'm thinking what I did to get to my career and raise my family was something that any mother is going to do. You're going to find a way to make whatever you need happen for your children. You're going to do that. And in that regard, when you and Catherine first approached me, my response, if you recall, was, I didn't do anything special. I get a degree, I get some jobs, and I'm able to put you through college. Any mother is going to, or father is going to do that. But the thing that you wanted me to focus on was the circumstances surrounding what I did. Overcoming from birth, overcoming an abusive adoptive mother, going to undergrad, finishing that up while raising 2 children, and then law school, having been married to a man who I said at my investiture when I became a judge, people said this marriage isn't going to last 24 hours, and it lasted 24 years and he died. That's the only reason the marriage stopped, is because your father died. What you have to do is you have to focus, and you have to, we talk about an inner moral code. We all know right from wrong. And it tells us, and I would tell young people, if somebody says, come on, let's go steal a car, you know good and well that you're not supposed to do that. And you have to listen to that inside and not be pulled. Peer pressure is very, very strong among kids, but you have to, because you have a long ways to go.
And just one, if you want to share about your writing process, you always tease us that we have all these outlines of different methods to use, and you just sat down and wrote your book.
It was probably because it was my life, and I have a very good memory. And I think one of the things that I attribute to having a good memory is the fact that I've had to learn 32-page Beethoven sonatas when I was a kid. And if you have to learn music like that over and over and over again, it trains your mind to be able to remember other things. But yeah, I listened to you and Catherine talk to people about how to write your book, and you do an outline and you do this and you do that. And I said, I'm not doing all that. So, and I sat down, opened it up, and I began just from the beginning. And it wasn't difficult because it was my life. When that process started, not only did memories come back in chronological order, but they came back in great detail.
Mm-hmm.
What I say that people said in my book is what they said. I've got verbatim. When my mother said things to me, and I have them in my book, that's what she said. When I quote what the bishop told me when he called me in and said, your father and I are going to hell, that's what he said. It was a great process. And I thought, if you're going to do a autobiography, you need to start from the beginning and have it in chronological order.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to you and Catherine for advice on certain things. And then when I finished it and you took it to proofread it, and I asked you, how much did you have to change? And it was very, very little.
Yeah.
I was proud of that.
Mm-hmm.
I was writing legal stuff,
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Not stories.
Mm-hmm.
But I got through the process not doing any of the things that you tell your people to do. It just worked for me.
Right.
So you have the product.
Yes, it's beautiful. You did a great job.
I want to explain to your viewers and listeners that Rosemary was my name given to me at birth. My name was Rosemary Lupo. I named my book The Triumph of Rosemary because Rosemary really started out behind the 8-ball at birth, being thrown into foster because I'm black and white. And so I named my book The Triumph of Rosemary. And that's what I want everybody that reads my story to do, to learn how to triumph over any challenges that you have to face. Mm-hmm. Hopefully you have support from your family, from your partner, but if you don't, you got to dig way deep down inside and find it and do it for yourself.
Beautiful, beautiful. And another aspect of you doing that for your powerful way of thinking and living is your super healthy lifestyle. Throughout my whole life, you've jogged, you've lifted weights, and you've been engaged in eating healthy foods, eating in moderation to have treats and such. But physical wellness and a healthy lifestyle have been integral as well to your success and your stamina and your vitality.
At the total person, right? Mind, body, and soul.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
All work together to be able to have a peaceful existence, a peaceful person. And you have to be happy within yourself. When you're happy with yourself, you're able to give to others. You're able to give to the world, to give to your family, to your community. If you just go around all the time, woe is me, it isn't healthy. And I think it's very detrimental to the spirit.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So for people who are watching and who are thinking about getting your book, I just want to share that the audio book is also available on audible.com, which is part of Amazon. So you can get the ebook, the paperback, or the audio book. And you are in for a treat. You will take away nuggets of wisdom and inspiration, and you'll be very entertained by some of the stories that she shares that she didn't talk about today, including when a little boy called her the N-word. You don't have to tell it. Let's have people read the book so they can get the story. But she persevered.
The highest compliment that I receive is, I couldn't put it down. I couldn't put the book down. I wanted to see what was going to happen to you next. That's the highest compliment that I've had.
Mm-hmm.
And I, people laughed, they cried. And when I autographed my book, the message I put in there is, thank you for sharing my journey with me.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I want. That's what I want
Mm-hmm.
people to do.
And one of the greatest moments of coming full circle on that journey was when you were the commencement speaker, 2018 Saginaw Valley State University now, to 2 auditoriums full of 5,000 people each. It was extraordinary and everybody was super inspired. So you continue to be a tremendous inspiration to people everywhere, and I hope that people watching will want Judge Atkins to speak at their organization, college, conference, corporation, company, or read the book and just get that big jolt of inspiration that you need. So thank you very much for joining Book Talks today. And this is the place where you can get inspiration, instruction, and insight into how to open a new chapter in your life to live bigger, better, and bolder. So thank you to my wonderful, beautiful, intelligent mother, Judge Marylin E. Atkins, author of The Triumph of Rosemary, a memoir. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. And we'll see you next time for another episode of Book Talks with Two Sisters Writing and Publishing. If you're getting value out of Book Talks and you're finding that you're learning and you feel that other people can be inspired by the information we're sharing in our author interviews, please do like, share, subscribe, and comment. I'd love to hear your ideas and your responses to everything that our authors are saying here at the Two Sisters Writing and Publishing channel. I would also like to please let you know about any future interviews so that you can get more inspiring messages from our authors. So please hit the notification bell. Thank you so very much for joining me, Elizabeth Ann Atkins, here at the Two Sisters Writing and Publishing channel for our Book Talks, where you get to meet our amazing authors who share their insights, inspiration, and instruction to hopefully help you open a new chapter in your life to live bigger, better, and bolder.